Hey, business owners, great news for you all. The Buy, Grow, Sell Summit is back for 2023. This is the online event for business owners looking to acquire, scale, or exit a business. Now, mark your calendars. This event's going to be on the 5th and 6th of September. As I said, it is fully online and it's going to run from sort of early morning to sort of around the middle of the day. And it's going to be packed with some amazing speakers like Mark Boris AM, who is renowned for his time not only as the founder of Wizard Home Loans, but he was also on Channel 9 as the leader of The Apprentice and Celebrity Apprentice. He also went on to do the show Mentored via Channel 7. Janine Alice from Shark Tank and Booze Juice, and a bunch of other speakers who are going to blow your socks off with the amount of tips and practical advice that you can walk away with and implement immediately in your business. This really is a summit not to miss. It's free to register, it's free to attend, and I guarantee you're going to take a lot of value away. Now head over to buygrowsellsummit.com, drop in your name and email address to register and confirm your spot. Of course, we'll let you know all the details and how to log in, but buygrowsellsummit.com is the website. We look forward to joining you at the summit.
The reason I'm super openly talking about exits. I think it's super, super interesting.
Cool.
And I think that, I built and scaled a company when I was like in uni. It was like I had no intentions, no plans. Literally the business plan was to hire like our friends and really have a good time and kick butt and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it was like, the business plan was never like build a big company. We didn't know anything. We didn't know what EBITDA were. We didn't know where business cards were. Like we were just complete idiots. To the point where I think we invented business card one day and we were like, fuck, this is amazing. You have like a piece of thing you give to them. This is back in 2001. So like in the dark ages when people have business cards, we were like, this is amazing. So smart of us. So when we were like 7 years into the company and we didn't have any investors, we got people who said, we want to buy you. And we were like, just like the business cards, we're like, shit, like this never happens to anybody but us. Like we have to reinvent the genre here. It's like, so we're completely idiots. But what happened to my first company is more or less that we got an acquisition every year from one of the big names, like, the big software and like companies. Sorry.
Yep.
And it's
interesting just to be clear, because it feels like we've already started, and that's cool with me because we can worry about intros later. But it's so just to be clear though, the company that you've co-founded in, and this is 2002, was the Astonishing Tribe.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. Exactly, the Astonishing
That's
Tribe.
The one we talked about. Yeah,
I can say that the naming isn't the best either, right? It's like one of those things where I think we've got so many mistyped names over the years, where people like the Estonian Tribe and stuff like that. We're like, what? I think we shortened it TAT after a while, and we didn't know that TAT is for the part of HIV that turns into AIDS and the interplanetary missile and like there are like 10 bad stuff about the like abbreviation TAT. So like there were obviously no branding agency involved. And like again, we reinvented everything. But I think what was great about that was like I think it was in 2007 the first time. So like 6-7 years in, I think we were 100-ish people. Cash flow positive. We're like building this company. And then like one of these like the Intels, the Arms, the Googles, like that category came in as like we want to acquire you. Like flew in the the top brass, like everybody in the suit and tie, and like you come to this location or HQ and stuff. And I think we always took it as like this is really interesting. Like okay, let's meet them, let's figure it out, because we had kind of quote unquote reinvented everything. I don't say that in a positive way. I really mean like in a stupid way. But I think we kind of felt, okay, so they want to acquire us. Let's go and talk to them at their HQ. Let's sit down with them. Let's spend some time, because it can turn into customer. Like it could be a really interesting partnership. So we just met them. And we didn't have any like advisors or anything. We just met them and very casually talked to them. And I think we're just trying to be business smart. And like, of course, we're not going to like tell you our secrets or anything. We're just going to sit down as if it was a customer. Just like sit down and talk to them. And we more or less had like one failed acquisition per year for like 3 or 4 years. And I would say that it was very much that we weren't very keen on it. So like we were running a business, we're full steam. And I think that we were doubling the company every year. And I would say that we just felt there's absolutely no point in us selling the company to these people now, because it's working. Like it's just like
it's premature. Yeah. Let me just for the audience here. Can we put a couple of frames around this? So you started or co-founded the company in 2002.
Yep, 2001.
How old were you at that
2001. I was let's say 20. I was 21 when I started it. So like
21. Okay.
So I was like super young, right? Like, I mean, there's a reason we
Yeah,
minted
yeah.
everything. We were like fresh out of uni. We were still in uni actually, wet behind the
Yeah.
ears.
Yeah, and which is fantastic. I think there's, nice. I think it's the dream for a lot of uni students. But okay, so you started around 2000. You've co-founded with some friends. You've just said that in 2007, Google and some big guys were reaching out
not
to you.
necessarily Google, like without confidentiality, but those kind of logos.
Those kind of companies. Yep, fair enough. So just clarifying that for people listening. So, but give us an idea of what the company was doing. You just mentioned that you were you doubling or each year or year on year, and like, can you talk to us about high level revenue, like staff numbers, or what did that growth path look like?
Exactly. We started 6 people, 6 friends, and we started with essentially the idea, we just didn't want to work for quote unquote the man. So like we had friends that had gone to work for the big tech giants, the ones that like more or less later in different shape or forms came on acquire. So like anybody from the Sony to the Googles or what have you. And we were in uni and we just heard people saying this, like, it's just so bullshit. It's like, these are the amount of bananas you get. This is how you book a meeting room. And we were like, this sounds like prison. Like, it sounds like horrible, right? Why aren't you just... And they were complaining about like, oh, we can't really use this. Like, we're not allowed to use open source, or, oh yeah, I can't use that browser. And we're like, inmates, like, I mean, listen, guys, it's like we're just downloading stuff, we're using it, and we can do best of breed on everything we like, right? And so we just felt, how do we avoid working for these companies? That was like one of the ideas of the company, more or less. So we just started, like, we were 6 friends. We more or less started 4 different companies and just started it together. So like 2 of us did software consulting for a software company with camera stuff. 2 of us did music, special effects for music. 2 of us did like an arts festival installation. Like, we cobbled it together. Didn't really matter. We just pooled the revenue, paid our salaries. That's it, right? And then 1 year in, then Sony and Ericsson merged, and then the Sony Japanese part, like one of the PlayStation phones, and Ericsson had, like, if you remember your mobile phones from 2001, they were like, the experience was like of a carryable microwave oven. It's like, it was not that sexy. And if you've met Japanese people and Swedish people, the problem is that, the Swedish people they are not that confrontational, right? So they were just like calmly saying that maybe it's hard. And if you met Japanese people, they're not that great at saying, this is it, like, you have to fix it, right? So they were also beating around the bush for quite a lot of months in this acquisition of, like, I think both sides thought that they had said, we want a PlayStation phone. And the other side is like, we can't build a PlayStation phone. So like, but of course, due to the cultural differences, they kind of never did. So what happened is one of our friends, who was one of the inmates at one of these companies, he just one day sat over a beer and said, I'm like part of the design team, and it just doesn't make any sense. Like, it's just we're designing this PlayStation phone, but my person next to me can't build anything about it. So we're toast, and I'm going to probably lose my job, and this ship is going to go down. And this was on a Friday, and we were just like, hey man, it's not that hard. You're going to draw pixels to a screen. I mean, it's like, you can fix it. And he said, yeah, but I mean, we have a microwave oven, right? Like, but you can do pretty. I mean, actually, you could do stuff with a microwave oven, right? So we were just spending the weekend on trying to just hack something together that seemed as if it could maybe create some experience on a phone, or like that low processor. And it kind of worked. So we kind of brought him in on Monday, and we're like, hey, check this out. He checked it out. So I was like, can I bring my boss? Yeah, go ahead. I mean, we're building, arts festivals and whatever. So like, we were just like, hey, another 4th idea, 5th idea, doesn't matter. Him and his boss came in. His boss was in his like mid 40s, like a real person. And he came in and looked at this thing, and he was like, can I acquire you? And we were like, no, I mean, they're mid-adventure. I mean, this is amazing. We're just like building fun stuff. Like, we don't want to be acquired. He was like, okay, how much do you want to charge for it? And we had done one big arts festival thing that they paid us $40,000 for, US dollars. And that was just, ludicrous amounts. Again, we're students, right? So we just felt we don't want to do this thing for them. Like, we don't want to build this mobile thing for Sony Ericsson. That feels horribly boring. So we wanted, how do you politely say no? Because we had this friend, right? So like, we didn't want to say no, because I mean, why are they sitting in our office eating, cinnamon balls and coffee when we're just kicking them out? So we just said, we can do it, but you'll have to pay us $40,000. Because I mean, that's like a polite way of saying, I mean, it's just impossibly expensive, right? And this guy just looked at us like, 40,000? Do you mean per phone model unit? Or we're like, what do you mean by that? And we're like, yeah. And we're like, okay,
it's too cheap.
Okay. So like, okay. And then, would you help us with integration? We were like, I mean, we would of course pay you for it. We were like, yeah, we would do that. I mean, we're just polite kids, right? We felt like we're not going to say no. It was like, okay, I'll go home and draft something. this is super impressive, right? And yeah, okay. So like just when he was leaving, we were like, how many phones do you make per year? And it was like, I mean, we do roughly 10 phone models. So we were like, but that's like almost $500,000 per year. He was like, yeah, I guess it is. Like, as in, like, what are you talking about, guys? I mean, this is, what's the problem? And he was like, yeah, great.
Yeah.
And then 3 days later, they came with a license agreement. And then that's when we actually started looking at a lot of the art shows, a lot of music videos we did, and realized nobody paid us. You know, like we were 6 dudes in a basement who did fun stuff as a hobby as students, and then you know, kind of exploited because people were like, yeah, they don't really charge. You're like, you know, give them a pack of beers, they're going to be happy kind of level, and you know, we'll buy you pizzas. And we're like, oh, pizzas, like it's super happy, right? And then some of these people come in, it's like pay $500,000 and do stuff, and they were very professional about it. We're like, maybe we should just focus more on these people, not because we not greed, not anything. We just felt they're very serious. They actually plan stuff. When they say the 17th of February, they do it the 17th of February. Like, that's pretty crazy for us. We wanted to do that, but most of our customers didn't. Like, that's the world of arts and music. So we just like, you know, pivoted, or whatever you call it, like just focused, put all our eggs in basket, started building this, and started then taking more customers. So like 2002 rolls around, and we're 6 people in a shed, more or less, right? And then we just like go from, you know, 6 to 12, 12 to 24, 24 to 50, boop, 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 year by year by year. And we're roughly 50. And then we realized that we're not really enjoying being bosses of this company. We're just like, I don't feel like I enjoy, like, you know, the work of a CFO, a CPO, like a CTO, a CEO, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I know like the whole term grown up in the room, but the thing is grown ups, like I'm a grown up now, otherwise, and I mean, you're too. It's not that fun being a grown up. Like, I mean, it's like it's a lot of responsibility, and you have to be the boring person who says like, no, don't eat that shit. You're going to get a like stomach ache and stuff. So like you always like know what could go wrong, and you're like a bit boring about it. So we just felt, could we do a crazy thing? Could we hire our bosses? Could we actually, that would be the great opportunity. We just hire people that we really want to work with. I mean, that would be the best. So we just went out and like we hired our CFO. We were like super happy. Somebody who actually liked spreadsheets and knew them and could build and like knew what EBITDA meant and stuff like that was crazy. Hired our CTO was amazing. Just a person to like build big product management teams and stuff like that. Hire our CEO eventually, and just like kept going. And then we stayed in control. A lot of people, when they hear this, they're like, oh, so you lost control of the company. We're like, no. I mean, of course not. We own the whole company. We were in the board. We structured. I mean, I was working alongside the CEO every day. She was absolutely amazing. She was more of a COO than a CEO in many aspects of forms. But I mean, we felt we're not going to be able to hire her if we give her the COO title. So she has to have the autonomy of a CEO. And she were. But when it came to like, let's set the vision, let's rally the team, she was like, hey, I don't want to do this. Can you do this, Hampus? Which meant that like a lot of the soft aspect of the CEO role, like I had, and I think that's what I enjoyed. Like, again, it was like friends with benefits situation. Like, you have the advantages, but not the drawdowns. It was like, it just felt really, really good. And we just kept boom, boom, boom up again, like continuously. And then when 2008 rolls around, I mean, how many are we now? I think we're 80, 90 people. I think we're like 10 million euro, dollar, whatever revenue. So like, we're always kind of cash flow positive because we don't have investors, right? So like, and we don't have fat margins because, I mean, we don't have fat like bottom line, because if we made a profit, we hired more people. So we try to like stay to like 2, 3, 4, 5% margins. So like we didn't end up, you know, coming a bad year, we had to fire anybody. But we didn't do dividends. Like we just kept like increasing the company and scaling and being more ambitious. And then when 2010 rolls around, and again, so like our years like 2019, 2018, 2009, 2008, we had like the likes of the Googles and the Intels and what have you, to like, hey, come to our office, we want to acquire you. Sat down with these people, and they just end up being partners. And it was very interesting to see now in hindsight, like why those acquisitions failed were a lot of times because it was like one maverick who really had fallen in love with what we did, but then when they anchor that with like the financial part of the company, they just said, this is like going to be the most amazing window dressing. This is going to be the most amazing like Christmas tree decoration you can do. But I mean, we're in the business of selling Christmas trees. I mean, it's like I mean, it's amazing to have this stuff that makes people look at the Christmas tree. But I mean, we need to figure out how to cut down Christmas trees and how to transport them to people, right? Like this thing is a decoration. And of course it drives sales to us. But is there any way we can like partner with them, pay them money? They'll dress up one in the window. People come in and they buy Christmas trees, and we'll just pay the Astonishing Tribe people money for just driving customers to us, essentially, more or less, right? And I think that these like, I think what people felt with, because we were young, I would still consider we were young. I mean, we're in our late 20s, because that meant we have infinite amount of time. We're super enthusiastic, and I would honestly say we were extremely charming. If I would be honest, like we were one of those companies where like we had really fun with our customers. I'm not saying like went out like shit-faced drunk fun, but like honest fun. We were like, when we had Korean customers here once, we were like, we'd worked for like 80 hours straight. We're super tired, all of us. Like we're just sitting in a room, and Koreans have an amazing work ethic, so we're just like crushing it, all of us. And it was like Friday evening. We were really, really tired, and we just looked up and it's like, Byung-Chul Wang, have you done go-kart? And he was like, go-kart? What the fuck is go-kart? We're like, mini cars driving around. He was like, I don't have a driver's license. It's like, it's fine. You don't need a driver's license. It's like a mini car. He was like, I don't know about this. And I was like, no, let's go and check it out. So we like driving go-kart in the middle of the night with like Korean bosses. And we just, of course, they had a great time. We had like an amazing time. And what was so great about it is like, they're like, everybody's a person, right? Like you meet a super boss who's like 50-year-old. That person is worried about their kids getting to college. You meet this amazing 30-year-old super genius. That kid, like that person is really worried about getting kids. Like, so like we all just had a great time. And I think whatever people was like, it's great working with these people. They're like high work ethic, right? And we did something that was vital for them. So people just felt like, I want to acquire them. I want this in my jewelry box kind of level.
So to jump in on you here a second, what I'm hearing here, you've obviously had amazing success, and as you're already achieving these amazing results, I'm hearing there's a combination here of good culture, good people who like what they do fundamentally. I mean, is that a fair comment?
100%. I would say the thing is that we had like a motto of 3 things when we hired a person. We were like, we want a person who gets shit done. Like we always ask, what have you done the last 12 months? Like, just tell us something, right? And if people said, yeah, I've studied, we're like, okay, good. What did you do apart from studying? If they're like, I studied. And they're like, oh, so some people like did extra classes, whatever. But some people like, I also work at a cafe. I also just, we're like, okay, you get shit done. Like you get up in the morning, you get shit done. It's like, we know if we say, could you bring this box? They would be like, yeah, I'm going to bring the box, right? Number 2, they were smart. So we just said, like, have you solved a problem that like nobody solved before? Or we said, what's a movie you like that most people don't like? And people were like, some people were like trying to give this contrived, like, oh, I really like this fancy. And we're like, that's just like the fancy answer. And some people said something like, I like Harry Potter. Not back then, of course, but like we were just, what, sorry? Most people like Harry Potter. Like, you don't get what we're asking, right? But then some people said something which is like, okay, this is going to be really phony, but I actually really like the original Little Mermaid. We're like, what? Sorry? They're like, no, but think about it. And they kind of pitched you Little Mermaid. And you were like, interesting. I mean, and I think it was so interesting to see how people were able to be dynamic and figure out problems that were not necessarily what they kind of worked with. And then the fact number 3, are they really fun or not fun, because everybody thinks fun is like haha laugh and like drunk. I mean, like, do you get energy from them and are they kind, nice people? And the test for that for us was like, if you're now going cross Atlantic or cross Pacific or whatever, like, boarding in Sydney, going to land in San Diego, or going from Frankfurt to New York, whatever, would you sit next to them on the plane? Would like change your seat to sit next to them? And if you're like, I was like, you and Rebecca on the plane, you realize, oh, I'm 17A, and they're like, oh, I'm 19B. You'll be like, okay, see you on the other side. Or you'd be like, hey, miss, can I sit next to Rebecca here? Like, we're colleagues. And the person's like, of course you should. The thing is about that's when you know this person is like a great person to be around. And it's like, would you do that with your smartest colleague that you kind of think is an asshole? No, you would actually enjoy the flight without it, right? So every person we hired, we asked this question. That was like the thing. That was the thing. We just said like, and many amazing people failed on number 3.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's interesting, and I can imagine a lot of people trying to contrive some sort of answer they think you want to hear. Just coming back to this thing about, when you started this company, and I know, and we'll get to this part of your story later, but you obviously invest in a lot of startups now. But how important is passion in terms of that success formula?
I would say that I think you can build a very good company without passion. I don't think you can build a great company without passion. So I think that I think there are a lot of companies where we look at a lot, like, as you said, as investors, we look like they're kind of two hills you can climb. There's one which is a big hill, and there's an ice cream store on top of it. It's going to look like a steep hill, but when you're there, there's ice cream and there's great view. And there's like at Mount Everest on the right. And there are a lot of people start hiking this up, and they see the ice cream shop, and they're like, this is going to be super nice. Like, let's go to the ice cream shop. Let's like sit there, enjoy the view. It's going to be great. And there's some people who just obsess about winning. They're just like, I'm going to get up the highest mountain. And the thing is that, so it's not complacency because we're high up. It's like super amazing feat to get to the ice cream parlor. But the thing is that there's some people who are just not satisfied. And I would say that those people, if they realize that the process is as valuable. Like the journey is as valuable as the goal. They realize that they have to get to work every day, like with energy, with joy. And like the problem with this is like anybody who's climbed a high mountain, who's built a big company, who has like done an ultra marathon, whatever, they know, no, you're not smiling through that shit. Like, I mean, you just feel sometimes I'm dying. But the thing about it is that if somebody, like, there's so many times when you realize I don't want to do anything else. Like, and I mean, I think one has to realize, I think that there are like three kinds of company you can build. You can build a lifestyle company where you're optimizing for, am I enjoying it every day at work? And it's like, I want vacation on Friday, I'm going to go golfing with my friends. That's a lifestyle. It's amazing. I know friends who have amazing effing lifestyle companies, great turnover. There's 7 people in Boston. They love it. You know, they've got an office in Tokyo, which is 2 people. They just go to Tokyo. So it's just like the best, right? They just really enjoy life. And if somebody says, you know, do you want money? You want to, you know, not acquiring, but like, do you want investment? They're like, we're going to mess it up. Like, just don't mess up this lifestyle. We're picking up great salaries. We're doing dividends. We have what we want. Then number 2 is like, they want to build control. So they're building an empire and they want to be in effing control. So for them, it's like, they're building like, think about people who have been like a massive supermarket chain or like an industries thing. For them, it's like, yeah, I like make these gizmos, these gadgets, these trinkets and sell them to the, you know, the automotive industry or whatever. And then somebody says, do you want money? They're like, I want to have 90% of the shares. Like, I can sell you stuff and you can get money, but like, I need all votes, all board seats, all everything, right? And I want to be in control. Like, I'm hiring and firing, I'm telling, you know, giving everybody the orders of how to do it. Behind the scenes, maybe they might be super nice people, but like for them, it needs to be, I'm not going to have somebody to take this away from me. And then number 3, people are like, they're just like on this stupid exponential curve of like, I want to double every year, or like, I want to be the biggest. And those people you'd recognize by when you ask them, like, what was the furthest you pedaled? They're like, oh yeah, I got a Guinness Book of Record because I just paddled up the Ganges River. Or like, you know, what's the stupidest thing you done? Yeah, I entered a chess tournament in Tokyo. Oh, did you know chess? No. Oh, what happened? I won. And you're like, holy shit. Like, and they don't have to be like the smartest, whatever. They're just like, they like winning. They just like, they grit it out. They don't give up, right? And I think it's really important when you see these 2 hills, it's like, you shouldn't hike up Mount Everest if you want to build a lifestyle company or a control company. Because if you hike up that hill, you will need to lean on these Sherpas. You need to lean on the people around you. You need to listen to really these people's advice. If they're saying, we're going down, we have to pause, this is like base camp, whatever. If you just like, you don't know what you're doing, I'm going to go up, I'm going to win this chess tournament, you will die on Everest. So like, you need to hire that CEO, CFO, or whatever, like, you know, as we did, in a sense, you have to have people you lean on. They don't need to be like your CEO, of course, you can just hire really smart people. But you need to be in a position where you like realize you don't know what you're doing. Your biggest contribution is that you have the passion, you have the energy, and you can actually call those shots when there isn't data. So like, you have to say, I really want us to build this product, which means that when you're navigating the unknown, it becomes a passion. I know so many people who come into this and say, I'm going to calculate myself the right answer. And I usually ask, how did you meet your partner? And it's like, oh, that's funny. Like, it was strange. I was at this party and I just like looked them in the eyes and it's like, you're love of my life. And I was like, so how did you calculate yourself to that? And they're like, but that's different. Is it different? Like, I mean, there's so many choices of business where like you meet a candidate, you're sitting down and recruiting them, or for example, like a company coming and want to acquire you, and you just like, they leave the dinner and you're like, there's something about this I don't like. And then people say, no, all the data is great, but it's like, I don't think you're going to walk down the aisle in either of these conversations. Like, it's going to be a situation where they're going to pull the term sheet or you're going to find out some shit or something. So I think that that's one of those where you just have to use your antennae to be like, I have a great feeling about these people, or I don't have a great feeling about these people, while you're of course being rational and look at the data. So I think that, and that comes with passion. It really comes with, you know, I like some of the best entrepreneurs, they realize they have to like will stuff into an existence. Like, will a product, will a customer, will a market, for God's sake. And that doesn't come by rationality. It really becomes by like, I wish I could get this product. Like, I wish I could do this, or I have friends like that have this problem, I want to fix it. And then they just do it. I mean, I love it when people say like, oh, Airbnb, everybody knew it was going to happen. I was around, for God's sake. Airbnb was the stupidest shit product you can ever hear of, right? It was like, do you want to sleep on an unknown person's couch? It's like, in another city? Nah, I don't think so, right? And I mean, nowadays, like, it's rooms and whatever, it's changed, right? But I mean, Twitch, do you want to watch other people play computer games? When that happened, people were like, I don't have time to play my own computer games. Why would I watch other people play computer games? So it's like, I think some of these ideas were just, they're so dumb, and that's what makes them so amazing, because the founders were so passionate about a thing. So I would say that's passion, I think, is it's completely vital if you want to go up the Everest and not go up to ice cream parlor.
Yeah.
But I would say I have plenty of friends that started lifestyle companies that later got acquired, plenty of friends that started control companies that got acquired, and I have plenty of friends who were hiking up Everest, but then they were looked at and said, we're going to go to ice cream parlor. This is going to be like, it's going to be high hill. It's going to be amazing. And they realized that I don't really have the passion. Like, I don't enjoy this part. And I think then you find a place where you can actually build a solid company, and then they also get acquired, right? But if you want to build behemoth companies, it's different. And I think the last comment on that, I think, as well, is that so many people, when we eventually got acquired, not jumping ahead in the story, but I would say that I remember people like offering me like board seats, advisory roles, whatever investment opportunities in stuff that was kind of what we did, like mobile phone user interfaces or car user interfaces. And I was like, first of all, I'm not great at it. And number two, I actually don't think it's very interesting. People are like, you just build a company for 10 years. And I was like, yeah, I really enjoy building companies. Like UI, user interfaces, I really loved it for 3 years. That's what I did. 7 years of like, I realized that I just need to hire people that are better than I am and just help them get like succeed. And that's what I love and I'm good at. And user interfaces, I think I'm better than average, a lot better than average. But do I want to run another one? No, for God's sake, I want to really stay away from that one. Yeah. I've done that. Yeah. So I think that's the thing. Passion can change on what you're passionate for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I think even what you're saying there in terms of talking to buyers and talking, I mean, passion and culture and matching with other people and how that matches in a deal. You know, I've had a lot of guests on this podcast that talk about the importance of feeling some sort of connection. And you touched on this with prospective buyers when you start to even look at a potential deal. And, you know, for a group of guys who got offers regularly, and obviously you entertain discussions to a certain degree, but was there a shift in your thinking and perhaps the thinking of your other co-founders somewhere that, hey, these offers are getting bigger, these sort of the scenarios, like when did you know that it was a good time to sell?
No, we didn't actually. I think there were two things that happened. One, 2010 rolls around. The last 3 years are very tumultuous in the world. I mean, 28 was tumultuous in the financial market. Of course, the coming years were tumultuous for everybody. And I think that most of my co-founders were realizing the fact, we all realized it, but that was become extremely evident, where we had 99.999% of our wealth in, non-listed, non-liquid asset. And we had not a crazy high salary. So somebody wanted to buy an apartment. They were like, they went to the bank and the bank said, your salary isn't that high. And they were like, I wish I could buy this apartment. But we talked about it. We tried to figure out, we thought like, we did a small secondary. And I think it was great because it allowed us to be like, do you want to stay on? Yes, I do. Okay. So like, don't sell as much, right? I think it was really good because it allowed us to kind of just, you can step out and get this much cash, or you can stay on. And people are like, no, I want to stay on. I just want to buy the apartment. Okay. Sell for $1 million. Then you can buy whatever apartment now because you can come, like the bank will love you, right? And I think that was really, really good. But then I think that when we met Blackberry, I think the thing is that in any sale, any enterprise sales or M&A, it's really about the technical buyer, the user buyer, and the financial buyer. Like when we met the previous cohort of like the 07s to 09s, it was like we had a user buyer. We had like a person who was so passionate, who wanted the window dressing, who was like, these are the people, I love them, I worked with them, they're amazing, they would change our company. And it's like, we're talking about a company with 50,000 employees. You're going to hire a bunch of like 100 people, right? We're not going to change that company. But of course, we're going to be amazing, like dress like on the cake or something. But that's kind of what we're going to be for them, which not bad, could help them. But then we met the financial buyer and the technical buyer. And the financial buyer is, of course, the person who's going to pay for it and figure out if, how we're going to turn into money for them. Sometimes these people actually, they saw it and they're like, yeah, I see this could drive traffic, but like get people to buy our chipset instead of their chipset or whatever. But then when we came to technical buyer, who the people who actually are the ones that are going to integrate, maintain, operate, and like think about, how we're going to day by day do this. Some of the companies were just like, we're a chipset company. What are we going to do? Like, 4,000 lines of code. Like, I don't know what to do with it. Like, we open source our software. That's what we do, right? And like for us, it was like the technical buyer just looked at the financial buyer and says, if you want to pay for it, like we can use it, but we're going to open source it. So like if you like, I don't see the revenue. And the financial buyer's like, I don't care about the revenue. I think it's going to, get us more chipsets sold. The tech buyer's like, I mean, I don't know, because then I have to get it into my org, right? Like we have to change a lot, and like we have a big machine with like 2 years like planning cycles. I don't want this thing in that machine. And the user buyer ran around like with the maracas going like, I love these people, they're the best, we should work with them. And like the technical and financial buyer sat at this meeting, sometimes in front of us, being like, I know George is excited, but I mean, can you figure out why you want to be acquired us? And we were like, oh, we came here because George wanted to meet us. And we're like, I know. Could you give us the pitch? And we're like, no, I mean, no, I mean, I can tell you the pitch, but I'm not, I mean, we shouldn't be married if one party says, I love you, right? Like, let's figure this out.
Yeah.
Some of these meetings were really awkward when, you know, we just realized that like they hadn't actually aligned these three interests internally. And a lot of times when we met the technical buyer, so to say, very late in the process, where like the financial buyer and the user buyer, so to say, came here to our offices and like they met us and they were loved. And then like we go to whatever, the San Diego's, the Dallas, the Tokyo's, whatever, and we sit down with them. And this person who's actually going to be our boss just says like, who are you again? And like, you know, I've got my ass full with tasks to do and now I've got another thing. I don't want an orphan in my org. Like, I don't have time for this. And we're like, so Annie, have they talked to you? And she was like, no. And so we're like, this doesn't feel like it's going to be a fit, right? A lot of times we end up, again, with great relationships. And I mean, we end up actually hiring some of these people. We end up like partnering with them. It was really great. I'm really happy we did it. But I think that it was one of those where I think it's really, really important when you go into any acquisition conversation to realize this is going to be a time suck. And I mean, and also like there's a big risk in just like any kind of exposure, right? But I think that also coming in, and I think we had a motto then, and I have a motto still, which is, I don't want to waste your time. And what I'm secretly saying is, of course, I don't want you to waste my time.
Of course.
So a lot of times I just say to people, like in that second meeting or first even, I was like, I don't want to waste your time. Like, you know, kind of like a band, like budget, authority, need, timeline. It's like,
absolutely.
So if you were to acquire us, and I'm not sitting here with the dollar signs in my eyes, I just want to know, like, you realize we're 180 people, right? They were like, 180 people. Yeah. I mean, George didn't tell you? And they're like, no. Okay, we're 180 people. We got 7 offices, right? We've got like a $20 million turnover and like, you know, scaling. But they were like, oh, it's a big company. Yeah, not as yours.
So just to be clear, Hampus, is this the conversation you were having with the actual acquirer?
No. The actual acquirer was completely different. What happened with the actual acquirer was like, I was running around the beach, like I was all into like barefoot running and cadence focus. I was like hating when people called me. I was doing this a fixed time every day, super important to me. I was trying to figure out like just mental health and stress level. I had like put like a structure in my life. It was great. And then our head of the board calls and he's like, hey, I know you don't want to talk now, but I have you. And I was like, hey, no problem, Johan. Like, what's up? He was like, so you have to call this number. It's a dude from Blackberry, and he actually sounds really serious. And I was like, can I wait? Can I call him in an hour or two? And he was like, no. Like, just happens. Like, I know, but like, just call him. And I was like, no worries. Like, if you say it's important, I'm going to call him right away. Call this guy, and he's like, hey, my name is Chris Wormold. I run M&A at Blackberry. We've discussed this internally. We want to acquire you. And I just felt, okay, great. Hey, Chris, great to talk to you. Do you know what we do? And like, you know, and I was like, again, like super polite. I love just trying to help people figure out how to help them. So I was like, I'll talk you through what we do. I'm not going to sell it because I don't want to be like going on a 4th date and you realize I have 3 kids. Like, I want to be completely transparent about who we are. And so like making sure I'm not wasting your time. Like, super nice of you, but like we've looked into it, this, whatever. We had no interaction with Blackberry whatsoever, like before. So I just felt, okay, we had a great conversation. This is on a Wednesday. And we just book a meeting on the Friday where we're going to like go through what we do and with their tech team. So like I come back into the office, and like just say, can we just build a tech demo to just show what we can do? Because we just felt this is going to be a customer. So we're just going to essentially throw ourselves at this problem for 36 hours, just build the most kick-ass demo what we could do for Blackberry so that they will just look at this and say, that's amazing. And then in 3 weeks, when they realize they're not going to acquire us, they're just going to license the product just as Nokia, Samsung, Sony Ericsson, Motorola, and all the rest of them. So we're just like, that's great. This is a perfect sale. We don't have to even travel, maybe. That's perfect, right? So we're just like, it's like, that's how it felt. Because like that's how it had been the years before with some of these acquisitions. They just came back and said, could we license? So we're like, yeah, we kind of knew, right? It's fine. Anyways. So we kind of build this thing. We throw some of the greatest brains at it. And it just felt like great. The sales team were super hyped. Everybody was like super hyped about it. It was super. Friday comes, we kind of send them this demo, just present for them what we do. And again, this is like, for us, it's a customer meeting. And we believe in customer meetings with super big enterprise sales. Our average revenue per customer here were 5 million euros. So like, this is not like, let's sign the papers quickly. It took like 12 months to sign the papers. So like, we just felt brutally honest, this is what we do. But also, yeah, we danced in the dessert. We showed everything, right? We were like massive cool demo, but we also said, this is going to take 9 months to integrate. This is going to be like this expensive for you. You probably have to upgrade your graphic processing unit, So like, just so you know, right? We did this demo for them, and there were multiple times in the call where they just muted on the other side. This is back in the day where you didn't have Zoom calls. You had like a big Cisco like hardware on there.
Yeah.
So like they just muted, and we hear they're muted, right? So like we're just like, do you want us to pause? Say, hey, team, do you want us to pause? And they just unpaused, and like 12 voices in the room, like, yes, could you just give us a minute here? And you like heard the stress in their voice. You're like, what the heck is going on? And apparently what's happening on their side, they were just fighting. They were just like, we're idiots. Why can't we look at the demo they're showing us? Look what they're saying about processing power. Look at this is what, and like the tech person there was like, this is what I've said all along. And the head of design there, who was the person who designed Apple for Steve Jobs, he was like, this is what I've told you we can do. It's like, we just need the people. And like, people in the room just fighting about like, everybody's saying, why haven't we acquired these years ago, you idiots? And some people saying it's going to be too complicated. We have a team in Sweden. They're more or less communist in that country. Like, you don't never know it's going to work. These are North Americans, right? So like
of course. Yeah.
So it was great. It was a great call. And then we ended up the call. They said, can you come to Waterloo? And Waterloo, if you're European, means Belgium. So I was just like, Waterloo? And they were like, oh, sorry, Toronto. And I was like, oh, Toronto. Yeah, sorry. Like, I can come to Toronto. When? Monday morning at like 7 a.m. Oh, yeah, we can go to Toronto on Monday morning. Sure. It's like, what is it about? And we're like, yeah, we want to acquire you. And again, we felt, sure, whatever. Like, it's going to be a sale. But it's like, this is super smooth. It's been, it's been less than 7 days soon. And like, they are now all into it. We hear that they're desperate. And also, they're nice. They're Canadian, for God's sake. They're like the nicest people on the planet. So we just feel like we're having a great time with them, even on these like 2 interactions. So we realized that me and my co-founder started talking about this, my tech co-founder, and we just say, we're not able to go to them and say we're going to be acquired. I mean, it's going to be a shit show. And we can't go there and say that we're going to talk about licensing, because our North American sales lead will say, I'm joining. And I mean, our pre-sales team North America will say, we're joining. And this is obviously an M&A discussion, and we're going to turn around to be a licensing. But so we were just saying, let's just call in sick. So what we did is like on the Sunday, we booked tickets, flights and everything. We fly on Sunday, and we just like, post on like, on the internal forum, kind of like Slack today, and saying, sorry, home with the flu kind of level. And, my colleague wrote something like, my kid is sick, I'm going to stay home or something. So like, we flew out, lands in Toronto, and like we come out of like meet them. And the guy who picks us up is the guy who designed the Apple operating system, right? So like, this is like a legend for us. We were like, Don Lindsay, is this real? He was like, yeah, I know I'm a grumpy Canadian, but I'm also your host. And we're like, wow. Spent a great time with this guy in the car. And also his colleague, David Prue, who's like one of the most charming Canadians, which is like, that's a very high bar. Just like these two people are just like the best people driving us to the place, just talking to us what they're thinking about. We're just sitting there like, oh my God. And then we come to their massive meeting room, and we go in, and Michael Lazaridis was like 5 meters tall, super genius, like perfectly amazing. He's the co-founder and co-CEO of the company. We come in, and like the whole management room, whole management board, like the whole group, like we're talking about 15, 20 people in the room. And then Mike is standing up, and he's like, oh, you're here. That's great. Have you got coffee and everything? We're like, yeah, friend. So great, you're coming. I'm just standing here discussing with the team here that we should probably use Adobe for this. And we were just like, oh, like we flew here for a discussion of them using something that we know doesn't work. Like we know that you can't use Adobe. Like we've butted up against Adobe at like all of our competitors. And it's great if you have like the crazy most expensive phones on the planet. But if you're trying to build like normal phones, or just phones for God's sake, this doesn't work like hardware wise. So I was just like, can I speak freely? And Mike was like, yeah. Go ahead. And I was like, took the whiteboard, and I said, okay, let me just explain how Adobe works, like how Adobe like rendering engine for mobile phones works, and what TAT does. And I just drew this up, and Michael and I, my co-founder, were just like drawing this thing, and people asked questions. It's like, but don't you need more video RAM? I was like, no, you actually don't, because, and we explained, oh, but Adobe can do this. No, they really can't. And we never we're not like shit talking. We're really, hey, this is how it technically works. And I think about a lot of times, like when you do this presentation, again, it's enterprise sales. It's kind of a strange circle of you moving between dating, selling an apartment, and presenting your like bachelor, master's, PhD thesis. Like you move between like being super nice and saying, oh, that's a great question. Like as on a date, you're not going to say, what the fuck did you just say? You don't want to be polite and nice. But then also you want to be like, you go into the master thesis, bachelor thesis, we're like, so this is how it works. Like this is how soil works or software works, whatever. But then sometimes you have to be the real estate agent. We're like, I'm sorry, now you're asking the question one more time. I think there are other people who want questions here, right? Like, are you interested? Or is this like a way of you saying you're wise? And I think that kind of moved between those very elegantly. And we stood there for like literally an hour and a half, just like going through how it works. And then just Mike, looks at us and says, "This has been great. Do you want to go into my office? Just like, for another cup of coffee?" I just felt like, okay, whatever. Like, I mean, my flight is leaving in 9 hours. Like, whatever, we can have a cup of coffee in your office. We go into his office. Of course, it's like, crazy, amazing view. We look at Waterloo University, the quantum computing department. And he says, "I financed that, by the way. Like, I was so irritated that people didn't get that money can move the world. So one day I just said, we were going to be quantum computing. And I end up realizing I have to take money out of my pocket." We just, and not like now I like, this is the shortest version, but in a very like, humble, I'm happy to throw money at stuff that I don't think I'm getting money for, because I think that, we can change the world with money. And I come from a background where like, I thought you change the world with deep science and deep thinking. That's kind of how I grew up. And then starting the company, you change the world by like getting shit done, entrepreneurship, building teams, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then this guy says, you can move the world with money. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. We started talking about this. It's really good. And then he says, oh, by the way, in there, in the management room, it's like, what? Yeah, that was really good. There's some people in my management team that really says we should Adobe, and I get it, but I mean, technically it doesn't work. So I just really wanted you to explain to them why it doesn't work. And we're just staring at this guy. He's like, what? That was theater? Yeah, for some of them. For some it was theater. For me, it was amazing. So I would love to acquire you for $150 million. And we're like, oh, and that's an offer.
Just spat the number out.
He just spat it out. And we were like, sorry, what? That's an offer. And we're like, oh, okay. And we're like, yeah. I mean, my biggest fear is that you don't be acquired, or you have like 200 litigations. And we're like, no, we don't know if we're going to be acquired, but we don't have anybody litigations at all. He was like, that's great. Should we sign a term sheet? We're like, what, sorry?
Oh my goodness. Did out of interest, so $150 million offer, how did they come up with that? Was it a multiple of something?
Yeah,
or
4 times multiple next year's revenue, which was like, I don't know what our next year's revenue was going to be. I don't know why 4 times. I think it was more like, I think for them, it was it was like the $50,000 of Sony Ericsson. It was like, for them, it's kind of peanuts. And I mean,
and they just wanted to put a number out that would just wow you guys, or is that the thought?
Exactly. And I mean, there's like, because I mean, skipping in like in a couple of weeks in the future, when I joined the M&A team, because like that's another story. But when I joined, I asked them on my first day in like hanging out with them in Waterloo and like outside Toronto, I asked like, so $150 million, what you said, was that like the final offer? And they just laughed and said, no, that was Mike just saying like a number. And we were like, oh, what would you acquire us for? Anything.
Oh my goodness.
We were in crazy desperation mode. Like we were in a really bad state. Like we had to build what you have. And if you would have said 300, I think we would have had a deep conversation. But there was, of course, a point where we would have been like, these people are assholes. And I think that they said really interesting. They said, it's really more about how you would come to that number and how you would have handled it. Because if you come back and said, I want more money, they would have been like, do we want these people? But I think that if you would have, for example, had shareholders that, invested a certain valuation and they were not made whole, we would have totally respected that. And we get it. Like, we looked at who you are. You're 6 dudes. You're aged like 30 something, or young 30s. Like we were like 30 to 33. We had, I mean, there was no reason for us to get $1 million extra. So like they just said, like, if you come back and said we want double, they were all, I don't think we want to work with these people. Because at the end of the day, we really acquired people. Like we had software and everything and culture, but like if we had a bad relationship, we were not valuable at all. So
well, and that's just almost come full circle here on our conversation, right? That ultimately you overstretch, you're revealing something about yourself, right? That actually might put people off, and so it's.
I think it's
one of my colleagues has a cute kind of expression that he uses with some of our clients. Maybe when they're overreaching a little bit, is that nobody looks attractive when they've got their greedy goggles on.
Exactly. I think that's so true, right? And I think it's so true. I think about it all the time. It's like I can see that if we said, like, and the funny thing is, so like he's 100% agree. Like he spat out that number, right? And what happened was that they sent us a formal term sheet 24 hours later when we had landed. Like we kind of had a great dinner with them, blah blah blah. Got on the plane. We landed back in Copenhagen, where we are roughly, And like in our inbox is that where there's a term sheet, which is sent to our head of the board and to people who are at the meeting. And this, like, the head of the board, we talked to them on the phone. We were going to the airport level, but that's like, again, all the, like we were on, sick leave, remember? So like this was like a strange situation. And we got this term sheet and read it. And it was like, this is a legit term sheet. There was no weird shit about it. And like they very clearly said, in 6 weeks, we want you to have BlackBerry email addresses. So like, this is going to be swift, fast. We're going to like make sure this happens.
Wow.
And I think what's so interesting about that was that it was really about like, I think if we would have gotten back and said, can you sugar the offer or something? I think they could have done something. But as you said, like if they would have felt, hey, do you want to join BlackBerry or not? I think that one of the interesting things, like also conversations with Mike in that office, Mike said, I want to unseat Microsoft on the hegemony of business. And like what he meant was like Microsoft owned the whole business narrative back then. And he felt BlackBerry owns people's, back then, their like business mindset. But if you take it outside their mobile phone, you're in Microsoft land. And now Microsoft back in 2010 was trying to get into mobile. And Mike Lazaridis just said, we're going to own that. And we had worked like for 10 years, we had worked, or 9 years, we had worked with so many clients who were trying to like out Apple and stuff that, since 2007, when Apple did the iPhone. And we just felt, that's like, you're not going to win at Apple's own game. And then they made like cheaper phones and like plasticky stuff so that you would buy phones more often. And we just felt, I mean, come on, make something really good that people really love. And I mean, Mike had this great expression where he said, like, I so respect the iPhone. It's such an amazing device. But Apple's job is to waste an hour of you every day enjoyably. My job is to make sure that you gain an hour every day. And if you end up using that hour to play squash, to hang out with family, or to do another email, that's up to you. But my job is to save you an hour. And I remember that when he said that, and those two things, where you just felt like, these are our people. We just felt like we really want to work with these people who actually have a mission about building phones. And
nice.
To your point there, like, I think we could have done something, but also we didn't want it. Like, we just felt this is great. We want to be with these people. And they felt that.
Didn't need to. Yeah. And out of interest, and without wanting to step on confidentiality here, often, just very in simplistic terms, we see deals being broken into sort of cash, deferred payments, and sometimes earnouts.
Yeah, cash.
It was all cash.
What happened there was actually, that was another thing that you felt in the negotiation where, like, we get about not being greedy. Like, when we sat down negotiating the numbers, it was very clear for them that they didn't care. That, like, actually there was in the term sheet was a span. The term sheet said, I think it said 80 to 100 million euros, which is the dollar number there back then. And we were like, 80, that was, we thought it was going to be, but I mean, this, again, Mike was a super nice guy. He said, this is my number. I'm not the M&A team. They're going to get back to you. He was like, I think he did it really well. He was not anchoring high. He was really like communicating that, hey, the team, they own it. So he did it really well. And then I think what happened is they flew into our offices and like started working with us, bam, right away, just like started integrating, started working with the design team. And then over those 6 weeks, so we got to know them really well. We worked them really, and we still thought this, 7% probability they're going to be a customer. Like it's fine. It's good. It's really interesting for us because we get these really high level discussions where they're, CEO and top brass, which we usually don't get that fast. So like this customer is going to be a really good customer anyways. And there was this chance where we were discussing about the acquisition and everything, but it also felt a bit, it's a bit fiction. And also a bit like, why would they do this when they can license us? Like, I mean, what's the point? And then what happened is like the last week when we were sitting negotiating the agreement, we were still negotiating the price because that was one of those things where we felt like we're fine with 80, we're fine with 100, like, 100 it's fine essentially. And they were like, we were both like saying why we needed our number kind of level. And we're sitting negotiating. It really became the most ridiculous conversation because in that last 2 evenings, we realized that they don't really care about the number. So they started doing this crazy stuff that, for example, our CEO, this amazing person who we had hired, who's amazing, she didn't want any equity when she joined, and she didn't want any ESOP. So she didn't have a shareholding. And we were like multiple times going like, we want to make sure that she's a shareholder. And she was like, no, I really don't want that. I'm a super professional mercenary. I really work for the cash. If you don't think I'm worth it, just like don't have me. If you think I'm great, increase my salary. Or was like, can we get you to take and like equity? She was like, no, I really want you to feel that you can fire me in the day. I really want you to like, if I'm not great, you should get me out the door and not be like, she owns X% vesting, blah, blah, blah. But she's like, I really want this relationship. And we're like, professional, that's amazing. But at the last 2 days, Chris Wormel and some of the others just sat down like, Charlotta has 0. And we were like, yeah, I mean, we told her to start. Like, this is it, right? And she confirmed. She was like, yeah. And then we're like, okay, so part of the deal, he said, is that we take €1 million of your acquisition amount and we give it her. Yep. We were like, okay. That's
Cool.
one of the requirements. We're like, that's a great requirement. Like, it's just like, what did you just do? And I think there are many of those things where we realize it's not about the number. It's really about building a relationship where they want us to feel this was the best thing that happened to us. And not the best thing as in, bam, we don't care shit about, but actually like, I want to long-term loyalty work with these people. And the fact that they carved out €1 million, so like roughly $1 million today, to our CEO that we had quote unquote mistreated in the sense that we should have forced equity on our top of everything else. They just I felt such loyalty to the fact that they did that. And that meant that like I wanted to, do right to them on every single aspect. And then when we joined, I ran M&A for them, or ran EMEA M&A and did a lot of M&A for them for 2 years. Saw a lot of this on the other side when people were like, we're greedy, or we're tricksters, or like anything. And then I've angel invested in, what is it now, 100 companies, and then been at 2 VC firms. I invested in like 200 plus companies. Many of them been acquired in different shapes or forms, anyway, from like super unsuccessful to, every single aspect of that spectrum. And I think again and again and again, it's like that, keeping that speed, keeping that honesty, keeping that relationship with the person, and never trying to trick them. It's like, you're going to be, the thing there is like, you're going to be married to them. I mean, it's like, you're going to work with them for years and years. If they figure out day 2 that you lied to them, it doesn't matter if they paid you, they're going to sue you.
Totally. Yep. It all can be unwound, and lots of drama can come your way. Out of interest and cognizant of time here, you've been very generous sharing your story with me. But I was just curious about such a fast due diligence period.
Yeah.
How did you manage some of the more sensitive sort of information? Like I always get, whenever we've sold tech companies, there's always this issue of people wanting to do tech reviews and things like that, and it's like, well, hang on, how much can we show before we've signed a contract and we've, and just curious, did that sort of stuff come up for you, and how did you handle it?
It came up, but the elegant thing was for us is that because they actually started signing all the licensing paper in parallel, so they actually became, like, technically they started to become a customer, which was like, we integrated, and if they asked for anything that a normal customer wouldn't ask for, we were like, can we wait with this 1 more week? Just like, can we know you 1 week more before we show you this? But at the same time, like a normal licensee would say, I want to know this, does it work on this? And, we brought in our chief architect, like, they went through, just like a normal customer. Like, I mean, because our customers paid us like $5 million and more per year, these people were not like, oh, I'll just plug it in. They were just like, I'm going to be so dependent on you for so many years, so I want to know that this works. Right? So we knew how to handle the technical buyers. Like, those were like some of our best confidants. And I think the same with the financial buyer. They said, like, I want to figure out the chipset savings. We're like, okay, let's bring these people in. Let's go through this, right? And like, I think that was the thing. I think we were so lucky that they were a user. They were not a user, but they were treated as a customer. And I think that I've seen that when Twitter acquired some of the companies that I invested in and stuff like that. They were heavy users of that company. They used them day in and out. They loved the software. They loved the team. They had talked to the support team. And then one day they say, like, why don't you just join Twitter? And I think that, again, I think that's the best relationship you have, where they kind of know. Of course, you haven't shown them like the secret sauce. And I think the best trick I always find is like, NDAs and stuff are so complicated because, I mean, what are they going to do? It's like, are you going to sue them? Should I sue Blackberry, who had more lawyers than we had employees? And not going to happen. Right?
Those agreements are only as good as the amount of money you're willing to burn to go and fight them, right?
Exactly. So I think that the thing that always works for me is like, it's the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth date. I mean, even if you're dating, right, and you got whatever, snore, psoriasis, whatever, like you got a thing where you're not super proud of, there's like, you don't tell people at the first date when you're walking in the park. People are like, whoa, you're gross. But I mean, at the third date, you want to say like, hey, I just want to tell you a thing. Like, I've got an aunt to Brazil. I go there once a month. I have to visit her, right? And also, like, I snore pretty heavily. And they're like, I mean, come on, man. Like, I don't care if you snore. I really like you. And it's like, I just want to know, like, you to know. It's like, there was stuff for that. And it's like, I think you want to build that relationship where like you save the secrets, but you're not like, if they would say day 1, it's like, by the way, I'm a very light sleeper. I can't handle people snoring. I will die if I can't sleep at night. You'll be like, hey, this is going to be a fun date. We're going to go to the fun fair and like run around and be crazy. But I think dating is not going to happen because I'm heavy. It's
not going to work.
And I think that's the thing, is like building that honest relationship is really, really vital. And I think that today I mean, we're a VC firm. We invest ultra early stages in climate tech only. Climate tech is one of those areas where we see acquisitions are ramping up, and I mean, we see a lot of unholy, like medieval, like marriages between corporates doing investments, stuff like that. I think it's really important whenever you start a relationship as well, like as investments, realize if you're getting one of your potential customers on your cap table one way or another, like your relationship has changed. It's like your dorm friend that you're now dating. Your relationship has changed. It's like you just have to realize that there are certain things you can and can't do anymore, and it makes it really complicated. So like when we're advising our companies, we're just trying to make sure they understand what this means. And I think there are times when I think that also we all ask, like, when should we be acquired? Like from the 100+ angel investments, that happens all the time. And I usually say to them, either you're not passionate about the company anymore, and then it feels like you just hand it over one way or another. And number two is like, if you're stalling, like if you're doubling, and suddenly you're growing like 10% per year, and you're not like, the biggest company on the planet, because then it's great. But if you're like 20, 30, 50, 200 people, if you start growing 10%, you're not going to be a rocket ship. I would say grit it out, try. But if you start feeling that, no, we can't get on the growth curve, then you either need to acquire people or you need to be acquired. Because like you're stalling, and like either you buy more channel or you buy more tech or you buy more people or something, but you're not going to just sit there like a duck in the water and wait for competition to eat you in 5 years. So I think that so many times I'm just sitting down with the companies I worked with and say, I know you love this business. I know this is your baby, but I mean, this is the second year when you're flat, and you will be a sitting duck when competition comes around. So innovate or acquire or be acquired.
Yeah. If you sit still, then you're going backwards, right?
Exactly. So, it's the red queen effect. It's like, it's just so clear. It's like everyone is running and you're jogging. It's like, boom, you're going backwards. So, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. It's and so these days you're investing in sort of environmentally focused startups. That's the kind of thing. Is it what for those who might be listening to this and think, hey, that's me, and are you happy for people to be reaching out to you, and how do they get in contact with you guys?
I think email, we have on our webpage, you can also just click and say, I want to like get in touch with you. They can send in everything. Also referrals, they can check on LinkedIn, just see that we're connected. I would not recommend people just pinging me on LinkedIn and saying, hey, do you want to connect? We can be best buddies. It feels like we get a couple of hundred of those. So I think that the thing is, you see, we know each other through Maggie, ping Maggie, or go to our webpage, click the form, send it in, and that's going to be fine. We respond to every single email we get, which is like serious. And also you just tell people, send me a deck, what you do, like a presentation. Don't ask me to send in an NDA, because when we see hundreds of people per week, we can't sign NDAs. And then don't tell me stuff you don't want to tell me. Just like say that we're doing, and like trust me that I will try to help you. And then we invest from 500,000 euros up to 2.5 million euros. And we are super, super happy about super early stages. We love product because all three of us, Heidi and I, we've built quite a lot of companies. So we enjoy when there's a real product. And we enjoy, just like my first company, we enjoy that passion and love what they're doing, and not just like, we have a trinket, we want to get it out, I want to get rich. Because then it's like, this is going to be a long journey. We don't want to go to the ice cream parlor. We're going to go up Mount Everest. So I think that, and then we only do Europe and US, but we have so many friends all over the world that when people send us a thing from, for example, Australia, I have a great friend who is in Australia who does Australian deals. We just go, hey, Chris, we met this company. We love them. We would love to invest, but we can't invest. Singapore, South America, Korea, same. We're just like, damn, this is great, but like not for us. And then because also that's another amazing thing with working in climate, is that we actually want the companies to succeed for another reason, right? So if we meet a company where we feel like this is actually really this works, like this is a good company, then we're actually fine. We actually are fine with a Korean company building something that we can't invest in. That's fine. Like it doesn't matter. Like if they solve desalinated water, that's like they're pretty good for all of us, right? So I think
absolutely.
And then I think that a lot of other people would look at what we do and they say, so climate, so that means like big ass hardware like does this and that. We have done anything from like next generation banks to genetically modified crops through machine learning to like electrical bus companies to hardware. But I think that the thing is that there's so many companies, when you look at them and realize, I think one of the best litmus tests, if you look at the company and ask yourself, can this company operate 2050 or whatever year in the future, when we probably will have carbon laws and climate laws and everything? If you say, no, it can't, then you shouldn't. Like it won't work, right?
Yes.
But if you say, no, this company will be able to work, this actually doesn't destroy the planet. Maybe it's like, even, let's say it's e-commerce, like, something we don't like necessarily, like not the most needed thing on the planet. If you can do 0 footprint delivery on e-commerce, like next generation packaging, I don't know. Like, do you think people will buy stuff online in 2050? Yeah, hopefully. Otherwise, we're in dust mode. So can you make sure that we can do that delivery without destroying the planet? Hey, like talk to us, right?
Yeah.
There's so many people who are like, I don't think I'm a chemist. Like, I don't know physics. It's like, no, like 90% of our companies have no background. I mean, one of our companies is started by two people who left university. One of them was the captain of the Manchester City youth team, and one like left uni to help their parents like swing around their business. Like none of them, they don't have a degree. Their background isn't like, we get stuff done. And it's like the thing is, they just came in, they learned a lot, they had a really amazing first product when they demoed to us. It was like many of our companies, when we showed them, they literally have an ugly butt-ass prototype demo, and they're really interesting people, and they're really smart.
Yeah, cool. I love it. And what I'm hearing there with your description of these businesses too is that they've got the fundamentals right. People I think can overthink some of the minute or smaller details and get overly technical on something, but if the fundamentals aren't right, then it's not going to last, and you're obviously not going to get smart investors on board. So
no, and on that, I think that there are two things that I think that we usually try to tell our companies we invested in. One, do you want it to succeed, or do you think it will succeed? There's so many of these things that because of climate or health or anything, you want it to work, but you can't technically see it, either technically or economically, how it will work. Like, we can cure mental health if people are happy to pay $1 million. Yeah, that's like great for billionaires, but most people can't pay $1 million, right? So then it actually won't work. Or the other one is that, can you sell this to a climate denier? Like, there's so many of these businesses where, like, yeah, you can buy it if you really truly believe it's good for climate. It will decrease your yields, it will increase your risks. But if you really believe in climate, you should buy it. That's hard. Yeah. But if you come in, it's like, wait. An electrical car is easier to maintain. It's cheaper. So if you swap your fleet to electrical, it works. The only problem you have is you can't charge in like structured way because of like how your fleet looks. Wait. We can help you figure out you can charge anywhere where you go. That means you can flip to electrical, which means that your economical buyer in the company says, this is cheaper. Your technical buyer says, this is easier to maintain. And your user buyer says, hey, I want to learn electric because I don't want to look like an asshole. It's like, that's the sweetest of all, when like the customer can be a climate denier and still go.
Yeah, trifecta. Yeah, beautiful. Hampus, I've really loved chatting to you. You've had a fascinating story and journey, and obviously you've got a lot more ahead of you. I've really enjoyed it, and I think there's some great takeaways here. I've got one last question, if I could.
Yeah, go.
Having achieved the sort of success you've achieved, you've done lots of different things and obviously helped a lot of people, but how would you define success now, given everything you've already done?
Yeah, I would say that I think for success for me is like I actually more look at what success isn't a lot of times. So I think for me it's like success is not like, to make sure that you're successful, I would say avoid getting like economical bankruptcy in one shape or other. There are so many times when people are building a company and they're putting more and more of their house mortgage into the company, and they get in a situation where if the company doesn't succeed, they're toast. That is not success. And I think day by day it's not success. The other one is health or mental like bankruptcy, where they're never walking in the sun, they're never not eating, they're like, that's not success either. It doesn't matter actually how much money you got in the bank account at the end. Like, if you're doing that for yourself for 10 years, you will have that money in a very short time in your bank account, sadly. And number 3, I think, is like the friend bankruptcy, where you're just like, you become a lonely person that don't have time for people that are not as genius as you are, or number 2 is like you become an asshole. So I have so many friends whose company is amazing or who got acquired or something, and they're assholes, sadly, because they used to be the smartest person in the room. They used to like call the shots for 5, 10, 20 years. And the problem when that happens to you, for after 20 years of you calling the shots and you being the smartest and wealthiest person in the room, you just think you're right. And that's you're not a great person. So I think that for me, I think that success is, I think, when you feel free in your mind, like you feel that, like, and free in your mind, you might be working, 70 hours a week, whatever, but you feel that, I think so many people, they put their mental stuff as a yard sale just in front of other people. And just like they let other people decide their calendar, they let other people decide if they're happy or not. And I think that if other people are who defines your happiness, you're not successful. I think at the end of the day, like, you just say, like, oh, I don't have 100 likes on my Instagram account for this. It's like, maybe you should just delete your Instagram account. Just like,
totally.
Did you like that cake? Yeah, it was amazing. Why the fuck did you take a picture of the cake and post it online so other people tell you the cake wasn't good? Just like, enjoy the cake, for God's sake. And I think that
I live in the moment.
And it might be actually, I have people who live in anticipation as well, like people who plan one vacation a year, they think about it all year, they love it all year, and then go on vacation and they say it's kind of good, it wasn't as good as they hoped, but at least all year they're enjoying the thought about it. But people who people who like day in and day out, they're bitter, they're assholes, they're irritated, they feel that their luck and success and happiness is owned by someone else. either that other people tell they're smart, or other people say they're rich, or other people say they're good looking. That is not success. Success for me is the freedom of feeling, and it's also, it's not free to, it's free from. It's not free to buy a yacht. It's not free to go to Mount Everest. It's free to. It's free from. It's free from stress. It's free from guilt. It's free from. It's like, that's what it is. And I think that so many people that when they realize that, they realize, I should have done differently.
Yeah, excellent. Hampus, thank you so much. I think that's a great note to finish on in terms of people, getting in touch with what's important to them. And I think, hey, let's circle right back to the beginning here. That might actually help you find what you're passionate about, and that might lead to your personal success. So, Hampus, thank you so much for coming on board. You've been very generous with your time, and I've really appreciated it.
It's been great, Simon. Thanks a lot.
Excellent. And thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buy, Grow, Sell podcast. And we look forward to having you join us for the next episode.